Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of InnerViews. This is our best of season one recap, where we're revisiting some of the most impactful moments and powerful conversations we've shared this year. From discussions on generational trauma to transformative insights on resilience, each episode has brought unique perspectives and heartfelt stories. Today, I invite you to journey back with us, reflect on these incredible insights, and prepare for an even more exciting 2025 season of InnerViews. Our journey this season began with Dr. Allison Davis in episode 1, Healing Generations, Nurturing the Inner Child Through Reparenting. Dr. Davis and I dove deep into the concept of generational trauma and the significance of reparenting as a path to intentional, culturally informed healing. She illuminated how, by nurturing our inner child, we can transform pain into power. Here's a clip from our conversation that really set the stage for the season. Are there levels of healing? Can you achieve a certain level of healing and then realize there's still more work to do, but still have had a valid healing experience? And then too, what do you do? What do you do with that when you find yourself there?
No, thank you for sharing. And again, with the vulnerability to, actually say where you are now. And, definitely, there are layers to healing. And for the most part, we do, because we don't even understand ourselves well enough to know how deep the wounds go. And so a lot of times, even with everything that you shared, there's a belief system. And part of the healing is, unmantling the belief system. And it's also the ability to, part of what I had is like removing barriers in the mind. Really, again, what are the barriers? Why does my thinking take me this way opposed to this way? And just kind of working through, like you said, I'm going deeper now because I know that I'm accomplished in these areas. And I thought that would just kind of usher me into the next level of happiness or fulfillment. But I'm still finding that I'm not satisfied. So then we have to go deeper and okay, let's start to, really see what your belief system is as it relates to relationship, as it relates to, where you are. Where you are the light. It doesn't matter where you are once you know that. So fundamentally, it's just like, I have to understand myself better. I have to understand that we call it, like in psychology, self-actualization, which means that you start and you continue to level up. And that everything that you go through is trying to get you to that next rung. And so, yeah, you got this, you have that, you have that. Now we need you to go up. There's something else calling you. And so this is like what we call contrast. So contrast are these things that trigger your emotions or your behavior or your awareness well enough to give you clarity on what you do want. So now through every experience, you do have more clarity. Okay, this city is not for me, so on and so forth. So each thing, if you allow it, it does give you more and more clarity. So earlier, you brought up a really, 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 really key word, which is process. It takes time. It doesn't happen. It's ongoing. I always say, you never arrive. You're always in pursuit.
Yes.
You're never going to be like, oh, yeah, some people can get content to a certain degree, but there's always room. There's always room. There's never not going to be challenges, ever, 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 ever. There's not money that can, take away challenges. There's not another human being that can take away challenges. There's not a child that can come to your life that will take away challenges. So even just coming to grips with, okay, some level of, which I know you've already done, because you could not have without all that you've been through. So another part of healing is like detoxing. What it means to detox, to cleanse. One of the things is guilt. We have to go away guilt. Like there's so many, like you said, there's so many layers. That's why most people are challenged with doing the work, because it's not a quick fix. And everything else is a relatively quick fix. You go to the doctor, you get a shot, get a surgery, get a pill, get something that relieves you, but not the body, not the mind. Our
Yeah.
creator made it way more complex than that. We're
Yeah.
complex. It's meant to be. We're meant to be complex.
Yeah. And I
But
think,
we're also meant to appreciate the complexity.
yeah, there's a beauty in that complexity, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
think that like I'm 33 now, and I feel like my peers are finally catching up to like the life is hard. It took to like the 30s for them to start having experiences where they can kind of like relate in a lot of ways. But also, I'm seeing a lot of them develop physical ailments
Mhm.
that I feel like could be tied to the mental and emotional aspects of health and well-being too.
100%. It cannot escape it.
Right. Like you in
Because
in the 20s you can get away with it. Like in the
you think
20s
you're getting away with it.
you
You
think you're
think
getting
you're
away with
getting
it.
away, but the body keeps score. That's the one thing that's
Yes.
the book. The body does keep score. From
Yeah.
early on, there's a
Mhm.
little dot that was there, just like you see it, like let's say termites or a water that just drips one drip, and before you know it, it can corrode a whole thing. That's the same thing. That's the same analogy with the body. You don't
Yeah.
see it when that faucet is just dripping one little drop. You're like, oh, that's no
Mhm.
big deal. You don't
Yeah.
even need to turn the water off. You don't even need to get it fixed. It's only one little drop. That's the
Mhm.
same thing. That's what happens to our body. Oh, that's just one little microaggression. Oh, that's just one little insult. Oh, that's just
Mhm.
one little this. You think your body is not like, okay, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's keeping score. It is keeping score.
score. And
And
eventually, like you said, like 30-ish, and even now, because whatever we're calling stress has elevated in COVID and working and performance and, trying to juggle and make ends meet. So we're stressing earlier because our kids are stressing. In first
mm,
grade, they're stressing. In kindergarten, they're flipping desks. No.
mhm. Dr. Davis helped us open the door to rethinking how we heal from our past. From there, we moved on to episode 2, where Deborah Zenzel shared her journey of resilience and reflection, and Reclamation, a journey of healing through reflection and resilience. Deborah's story of transformation through reparenting emphasized how vital it is to approach ourselves with kindness and patience, allowing us to grow and empower our own healing journeys.
I needed change, and I had the privilege of having a nice little savings account, financial support. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to take a break and I'm going to travel. And it was actually a decision, which we could be here all day talking about this, the how that all played out, because there was some trauma there. But the point is, I ended up doing a road trip, traveling the 50 states. And what that looked like, because I always had the goal of finishing visiting the 50 states before my 30th birthday. The pandemic hit, made me cancel trips. And so I turned it into a road trip. So here I am, living off of my savings, traveling the world through my car, staying at Airbnbs, spending lots of time in nature, out in the mountains, lots of hiking. The way my body went in shock and was just like, you're not go, 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 go anymore. You
Mm.
have time to think, 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 think. And so much caught up to me. And I was required to, I was required in terms of the expectations of society, right? I felt that pressure of like, what are you doing? Resting. Like you're supposed to be, being productive. You're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing that. And so society gives us those messages. And then I had the internal messages from my upbringing. And so, anyways, to end this point, what I'm trying to say is that during this time, I was forced to challenge a lot of thoughts. I was forced to redefine, success and the life I want to live and what do I want it to look like and what does healthy look like, and revisit a few things from my childhood, a few things, some trauma. And so I had to revisit some of that. And part of that process was me actually ending my lifelong relationship with my biological mother and brother. Part of that was ending other relationships. It was a very tough time, but it was needed. And in terms of reparenting, I am still working on this, but it was in that pivotal moment where I was forced to slow down. I was forced to think about these things, and I allowed myself to think about these things that reparenting now looks like still accomplishing my goals because that's just who I am, but giving myself grace while I do it. So if there's a change that happens, if I recognize, okay, you know what, this isn't a goal now. Maybe this is a goal 5 years from now, or you know what, this goal is going to look differently, or I'm going to rest this week and I'm not going to work towards that. And I'm not all of these words you can throw in, right? These labels. I'm okay and I'm human. And so reparenting up until 30 looked one way. And now for the last couple of years, it has looked a lot of different ways.
I resonate with that. I think that for me, a long time, like my inner parent voice, um, my mom's voice was still there because even though I was in foster care 17 years, I still lived with her intermittently for like a few months here and there. But I think my voice became because in my mind as a young child, it seemed like this was a great way for me to survive the experience. So that voice became academia, right?
Mhm.
And when you think about academia, you can never achieve too much. You always want more. And that's what came to mind when you talked about if you have a goal, you're going to get it at any cost, right? And I think that that was plausible when we were college age. That was plausible when we were in our 20s, but we're in our 30s now. And I think for me, I've had to really, really, really reevaluate that voice of academia inside of me telling me to keep striving for more and for more and for more, especially as someone who worked in education and I got a master's degree and such too. It really made me confront my relationship with academia. And I think honestly, I've had to break up with academia. And I've had to say, you know what, this voice has to go away. This cannot be the way that I live. Um, and it feels incredibly radical because who am I without achieving success? Or at least success in terms of how society, Western society, paints it, right? Which would largely be financial, which would largely be external factors. So when I think about my own reparenting journey, it sounds very similar to what you just described as coming to a crossroads and having to decide which path to take. And it doesn't mean that that path is going to be a consistent pace. It doesn't mean that that path is going to look like anything you've read in books or look like anything that's been told to you. But it's a decision that had to be made nonetheless. So, in episode 3, Healing the Mind Heals the Body, Dallas Wilson joined me to discuss intersections of trauma, physical health, and mental wellness. Together, we explored the societal stigmas around trauma, particularly for Black women, and the critical need for forgiveness and resilience. Her insights are profound, and this clip highlights Dallas's views on how trauma impacts both body and spirit.
I think also the communication with the female friends that I have in my life and some male friends too, just how they treat women and how they treat their own body and treat others, and even things with like pleasure mapping. This is something that I love to do when in a partnered relationship, is to show someone where the pleasure points are on your body and have them observe, learn. And then for them to show you where the pleasure points are on their body, and for you to learn, see how they touch themselves, practice safe, consensual touch and things like that. So I'm in an odd space right now where I'm not in a relationship and I feel like I haven't had physical touch, and I'm really in a place where I know that that is necessary for my healing. Like even just like self-touch, I do a lot, like I'm like self-hugging and things like that, or like, like I'll like touch my ears and things, like the touch is so important. And to not have that, I'm just trying to find other ways. I'm not ready right now to be in, I think, a committed relationship. I think there's some things that I'm looking for before I can fully give all of myself, because I felt like I wasn't giving myself to these people in the past. I feel like I was being picked apart and taken and leeched. Like these men that I've experienced feel like leeches, and so right now I'm just restoring myself, like getting to know people, getting to know myself, exercising a lot more, focusing on listening to good music, having dance parties. I spend a lot of time in front of mirrors.
Somatic movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting reintroduced to my body has been really important, like being in front of mirrors. And it might sound uncomfortable or odd, but I think everyone with a vagina should sit with a mirror and look at their vagina and
Oh yeah,
see.
check everything out. See what's
Yeah, look at them little labia. See what's up,
yeah.
See how, is there hair? Is there not? Like, keep checking it out. I'm very big on knowing what's going on with my body, and like not only internally, but like on the outside physically, like scanning. And also affirmations. Like, when you experience trauma, when you experience something where someone has touched you, said something, done something where you feel like you did not have control of that, your body did not feel good, it's so important for you to not be a bully to yourself mentally. Look at yourself in the mirror, say some affirmations like, you're gorgeous today. Like, I love, love, love the way you make people feel. Like, you have such great energy. You're a great listener. You made a bomb meal last week. Like, you're such a great chef. Like, just say things that will help make you feel rooted in the love that you need others to treat you with. Like, I love myself so much, and I think it's bothered a lot of former partners. And I think because they saw that love, it's almost like they wanted to do something to put a kink in that. Yeah. So
That reminds me too. Massage is a great way to get touch if you feel like you can't get it personally. You can go pay someone to touch you in a consensually safe way. It's also something I feel like is so important for just releasing trauma from the body, and then also like taking care of your body. Of course, we're always going to advocate for taking care of your mind through therapy, and there's more than one form of therapy. Talk therapy is not the only kind of therapy, so don't be afraid to try different therapists or try different methodologies. But also taking care of your body, cleaning yourself consistently.
yes.
Do
Take a lot of showers.
Take a lot of showers. Do what you need to do to feel beautiful, to feel pretty within your means. You don't always have to pay for it, but if you can, treat yourself. Get that hair removed if you don't like it. Keep it if you like it. Get your hair done if you want. Cut those dead ends off. Hair holds energy. Just do what you need to do to take care of your body. Your body is your temple. And I'm not saying that from a religious standpoint, but I'm saying that from, this is our home. This is where we live.
Yes, we live. Yeah.
We live in these bodies. So keep them clean and keep them cared for out of reverence and adoration. So yeah, we're doing the work. We're not perfect. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that we need to educate people on not only what sexual assault is, not only what the body is, but also what consent is. Because if these boys who did these things to us had known, maybe it would be a different story. We transition from personal journey of healing to a broader perspective in episode 4, Breaking the Silence, Empowering Survivors of Assault and Care, with Sonia Jones. Sonia's experience in overcoming abuse within the foster care system is a powerful reminder of the importance of speaking out and supporting one another and reclaiming our narratives. I don't feel I've experienced enough joy to balance out trauma and the stress that I've experienced so far. And like you, I've lived a lot of life. I've had so many experiences, good, bad, and other, but there has not been enough sustained joy yet.
100%.
Like for me to share a balanced story.
Yeah.
And I'm actually hoping that the joy surpasses the pain, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Thank
you for sharing that. Thank you for letting me know I'm not alone in that feeling, because, a lot of people, especially like on social media, they make it seem like, once you hit your 30s, you're at your peak and life is just supposed to be beautiful. Baby, no, like you're still going through the motions.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that I've seen you for a while and followed your story on social media as a content creator too. And you really hit something on the head. Like your 30s, it's presented as like, oh, this is your 20s, but with money. But for many of us with lived experience, there's not that much money. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
We out here having all these degrees and we're not getting the
Listen.
money. But for also specifically for people like us who have been intentional about the healing work, I feel like this is a time where we're actually safe enough to dig
Yeah.
even deeper. And
Yes.
that means
Yes.
uncovering things that we didn't even know were there sometimes. And
Absolutely.
that is a radical.
Yeah. And oh man, that's so powerful to me and for me because over the last, like since I've turned 30, I'm 33 now, I have been spending a lot of intentional time uncovering a lot of childhood things, like going through a health situation now. And a lot of the root of that is things that I experienced while I was in foster care and in my young adulthood. So I'm just like, it is very interesting, the journey. Yeah.
It is. And I think that your 30s, when you think about the context of having been in foster care, you're far removed enough from it that you can
Yes.
feel safe enough and that you can have established your community that can hold you and uplift you and help you and resource you. But again, it also unexpectedly brings out this level of healing that you might not have even realized was there or
Right.
had the capability of finding, let alone
Right.
actually healing it. And so it's a weird radical existence.
Yeah, and even knowing what the things are that exist, like the awareness of it is big.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
for me, I worked as a foster care social worker, and I felt like I had to remove myself from my job in order to heal all of my stuff. And
Oof.
that it hurt me because I was like, I really want to be there for my babies. I want to be there for, the ones who look up to me because I have the lived experience. But in order for me to really give them what they deserve and
Right.
also give myself what I need, I
Mhm.
have to remove myself from this role, from, just all of this because it was causing me to relive and, go through a lot of the experiences that I hadn't all the way healed from. So I
Mm.
definitely, yeah.
That is so real, but you are still there for them and you are still showing them just in a different way.
I am. I
Yeah.
love my babies. They still reach out and we still talk.
Yes,
So
yes. I had that same conversation with myself about leaving education because education is such a toxic work environment, especially for Black women in particular. We're expected to give so much and get so little in return. We're not respected, we're not supported, we're not well resourced, we're not considered as leadership. I could go on and on. And it has so many similarities to the field of social work, actually. They expect teachers to do so many things that social workers should actually be doing.
mm,
I'm not even going to get into that tangent, but I felt so guilty about leaving my students too. I've
mm,
always taught at schools. I have had students who had child welfare involvement, juvenile justice involvement. They've always been historically underserved. And so I felt guilty because everyone
yeah,
leaves them.
same, same.
Everyone leaves them. But I also had to talk to
Mm,
myself and say, Ivory, you're not leaving them. You're transforming your relationship with them, and they're going to be able to see a Black woman make healthy,
yeah.
sound decisions for herself, lead a
Yes.
life that she loves, and foster and facilitate joy in her
Mm,
life. And you can't do that here. And so it would
yes.
actually be a dishonor to not only yourself, but to them to continue to stay in a place
100%.
where you're not honored. So I just had to reframe that for myself and think of it as like, we're transforming our relationships. We're not
Absolutely.
abandoning or ending them.
Yeah.
Then in episode 5, I spoke with Jazz Snell about empowerment involved, thriving beyond trauma. Jazz has highlighted the importance of embracing emotions to foster healing and resilience. It's a lesson in vulnerability and strength that resonated deeply. Listen to how Jazz describes her approach to transforming emotional pain into empowerment.
Because immediate needs can change. Do you immediately need shelter? Do you immediately need basic needs met? Do you immediately need health supports, psychiatric, physical, whatever that may be? Looking at those immediate needs and tending to that, because we need a whole person, a whole physical person before we can start delving into long-standing trauma. And in my case, traumas that I've learned are generational. My mom was put in foster care at the same age as me. And I just found this out 2 or 3 years ago. So for me, even some of the pain judgments that I've held towards my parents, I've had to take a step back and not look at what I feel they've done to me, where they are or aren't, but look at what they've been through. And that's not through knowing all of their story, because we don't deserve to know all of the wounds that have healed. Some of them are healed for a reason. But by knowing some, it's allowed me to open my mind to possibilities of what they can do if they are whole, healed people. It's opened my mind to forgiveness, and that's allowed for love. And if you can't see it, love lives in and around me. And this has not always been a thing. But let's bring it back to restorative justice as far as the child welfare system. A lot of what's offered to families is not actually what they need. A lot of young people don't need replacement families. They don't need to be in group settings with stranger youth that they don't know, who may be going through the same thing, if not worse. A lot of times, communities and family need healing. They need reconciliation. They need support, whether it's, okay, we have AA, right? AA for people who may be substance dependent or dependent on something that has negatively impacted their lives and their family. How can we provide those type of supports and community for parents and their families who are struggling that's free of judgment? We hide the things that we feel we won't be forgiven for, we feel will further other us, and that allows people to suffer in silence. And sometimes that suffering worsens. So what can systems do to, let me bring myself back to the question.
Yeah, I can too. So, in terms of healing from past traumas, how do we rebuild trust within our communities from a restorative justice perspective? And I think you already kind of touched on it. And it sounds like you're getting to the proactive measures. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time just because we have a natural interest in healing and being whole people. And we come across in our lines of work people who we see who need that, right? Or people who could have easily benefited from these services well before even coming in touch with child welfare, foster care, juvenile justice, any of those intersecting systems. And so that's really what I'm hearing from you. Why don't we just move on to the next question? Because I feel like you kind of already touched on it, that proactive approach. You said something that made me really think. My first set of degrees, one of them is Africana Studies. And so we looked at the history of the United States through the Africana lens, if you will. And for me, this all goes back to slavery, right? There were no proactive measures in how Black families were approached. And in fact, it was very systemic in how they were intentionally broken apart. We see that through chattel slavery. We see that through auction sales, right? Where children and babies were sold up the river, down the river from their mothers and their fathers. I just wrote a piece in our Fostering Families Today magazine that talked about how the child welfare system, if restorative justice was the goal, could be a really healing source for families, especially Black and brown families, because they have the institutional power and access to provide these proactive measures to address the remnants of slavery and even start to undoing them. But the question is, do people really want to undo them? And I think that's what you and I have found in this work, that there are a lot of people protecting our legacy of oppression in our country, and they don't question how it operates, and they don't want to dismantle or unpack how it's operating. They want to continue to move on in this direction because it's all they know, and it's all that benefits them. So but I'm not going to get too radical today. I'm not. Let's not get too radical. Our next guest, Mike Osteen, took us on a transformative exploration of men's mental health in episode 6, Breaking Barriers, Nurturing Men's Mental and Emotional Well-Being. In this episode, we delved into the societal pressures that often prevent men from seeking help and embracing emotional vulnerability. Here's a moment where Mike talks about how he began to break down those barriers.
He's watching me sew for the strict purpose of learning. And I've been talking to my cousins who I'm living with now, Kayla and Ashley. They're twins. And we've been talking about, our experiences growing up. And it's like, man, I'm so fortunate. And I say this in an almost sick way. I'm fortunate for the way I grew up. And I'm fortunate for these experiences, because I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I didn't end up in the hospital. I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I didn't grow up with the parents I grew up with. And I'm seeing that these conversations and me being around my young cousins and young boys and young men and letting them know that your human body has natural reactions to things. We cry. That's a human trait. That's not a man trait. That's not a woman trait. That's not X chromosomes. That is a human trait. So the fact is, there's even other mammals that express pain. So this is something that's in our DNA.
Yeah.
But just acknowledging that. So I think, but yeah, it's definitely essential for fostering that healthier society, having those conversations, especially around mental and emotional intelligence. Mental health is looked at very differently depending on cultural in view of that. I grew up a lot of times hearing the jokes of like, oh, that's white people shit, and it's just like, oh, and seeing the impact of it. Because when I talk to my aunts now, and I hear about, the things they're going through, and they're like, if only we knew then what we know now. Where it's a struggle because, just from a generational thing. I just got out of the hospital in August. So I've been out of the hospital 7 months. I've been here 6 months, but to some members of my family, they're like, you should be, because they're from that generation of like, oh, you don't have sad days. Yeah. That's just a feeling. You're, be a man, basically, and understanding the impact. So, how can individuals, how can communities, institutions, and individuals contribute to this goal? Dialogue. Yeah. First and foremost, dialogue. I think having spaces, safe spaces for people. Because I've always been someone that gets a lot of strength from community. I'm always someone that gets a lot of strength from being around others who may have experienced something similar and being able to pass on that guidance. I experienced it for myself personally in January when I went to my first peer group, at my local LGBTQ center. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I wonder if these things were more popped out when I was in high school or when I was in college. Would I have discovered things earlier? So just having those conversations and then having spaces where just to have an open conversation. And I think, and this is something that I recognize as being a teacher, the importance of it, also making people just feel comfortable to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Because we can have the spaces all we want. I can have a space as large as the world for people to come and to speak. But if it's not presented in a way that makes people feel comfortable. And I recognize that really early on because, I have very masculine features. I'm a big man. And so I started realizing, even the way that I walk up to people, if I'm walking behind someone, I walk to the side, recognizing that, because of the way that because of the way we've been brought up in society, that, and not even just the way we've been brought up, let's just look at statistical data.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a definite reality to people being afraid of large men. And so I took that as an opportunity for, okay, now it's my opportunity to use myself and focus on that. And I felt it the biggest way as a coach, because I had a couple of my teachers who confided in me that they didn't feel comfortable around male figures. And they're in a state they're not from. And when they were at sometimes they're really tough points, when they called me, that made me glow. Because the trust for some of my teachers to call me when they're in distress. So, really the strategy initiative is having these conversations, having spaces for people to feel comfortable and safe. And then I think, honestly, the biggest responsibility is on men.
Episode 7 brought us a powerful conversation with Natalie Felice, reclaiming narratives and choosing happiness. Natalie's story reminds us of the strength in reclaiming our narratives and the resilience found in choosing happiness. Listen to her words on what it means to rewrite her story.
Ending up in the wrong hands and not in my hands. I'm not saying that I was a great mom and a perfect mom. I failed at times, but I did feel at that moment like she was my savior, the only thing that I had to hold me together, right? Because if I didn't have her, then I would have been a whole mess, a whole tore apart, right? Because now I don't have a responsibility to look forward to. And when I realized that if my daughter wouldn't have been with me, I would have been a mess, I ended up speaking up about this secret. But the crazy part is that now everybody was defending their own self and pushing for their self. So I'm like, oh, wait, hold up. Now you're going against me. And this whole entire time, I'm thinking that I was saving you. But now that I speak up, now I can see the truth that eventually you pick for yourself. So it didn't benefit me at all to hide a secret. If I would have spoken up a long time ago, probably when I was 9, I would have ended up going to Dominican Republic to hide the secret a number of times, missing school year. And then other time, even how I got pregnant with my daughter. I got pregnant with my daughter by going on one of those trips. And I knew that to come back to United States, I would have had to come out with the solution on getting pregnant. I'm like, if I finally get pregnant, I could go back to United States because her proudness is so high, her ego. So I know that she's gonna bring me back. Let me just go ahead and do this. But I didn't realize that that also wasn't helping me. You understand? That was more harming me because not harming me because I regret my child. I love my child.
Absolutely.
But more because now I have a kid, right? And then that kid was born with too many disorder and had to stay in the hospital for 5 years. But now I have the person that at one point had harmed me be someone in the picture. So then I'm like, now I have to do double the work
Mm-hmm.
and defend my child and feel like it's right. But when I came into foster care, I thought that I was saving my child from my stepfather and my mom and all of that. And then eventually I had to save my child from the same system that
Oh, it's like it's like you're damned if you do and damned
it's
if
like
you
you're running
don't.
away. It's like a horrible movie. You're running away.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I don't know if you realize it where they come with the mask and they after you. And then
Yep.
you're like, well, after that I was safe in this room.
Yep. I feel like so many of us could have said that at so many different points in our placements, in our foster homes, in our kinship care homes, in our shelters, in juvenile justice systems. Like we thought we were safe. I was watching something yesterday where a young girl was talking about how she tried to get herself to go to jail because she was experiencing some abuse and neglect too, like really violent sexual things. And she was like, well, I knew that if I went to jail, I would be safe and that I would have food to eat and that no one would be bothering me in the middle of the night. And so many people who have lived child welfare experience feel or want that fantasy of
Mhm,
being safe. They want the child welfare system to save them.
mhm.
And a lot of the times, too many times, in fact, maybe even most of the time, the child welfare system causes more harm than good.
Yes.
And it is just so, it's
Um,
really sad.
and it's so unfortunately that we have the right to point the finger at our parent and our own self too, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what is being told. Your parents were they traumatize you. Hey, go after them and feel so angry towards them and be depressed. And
Right,
and
right.
you as well, your poor decision, right? But then now that I'm 26 and I started being part of different organization and everything and even writing, I never had hear the story of I'm holding accountable of ACS. I'm holding
Mhm.
accountable of all this agency. I'm holding accountable of my foster mother, of the group home. I'm holding accountable everybody else. I hold accountable because that's the only way that ACS took you away because you did hold accountable of your parent, right?
Right.
They had consequence. But I had to say to myself, I have to hold you accountable. I'm sorry. Yeah, you want me to point the finger at my mom. I already did that. You want me to point the finger at my rapist. You investigated me a number of times to the point that I looked unstable, that I was drinking, that I did not even know how to advocate more for myself or my children because of the number of time that I was getting investigated and the number of time that you made me believe that I was an irresponsible parent, right?
We continued with Brittany Lee in episode 8, navigating 17 foster homes and breaking barriers. Brittany's journey through numerous foster homes underscores the importance of community and advocacy for positive change within the child welfare system. Her story of resilience is unforgettable. Preserving family relationships and or giving the skills and the tools to nurture family relationships, regardless of who has guardianship or not, but making sure that foster youth are connected to their biological family if that's what they desire and if that's healthy and safe, then, doing everything that they can to protect that and nurture those relationships, I think is super critical. But you started going down a path that I would like to explore a little bit more. And this is where our audience might get uncomfortable, but oh, well, they tuned in and this is what we do. We talk about uncomfortable things. And so, some might think that we're in a post-racial society. And, what does racism have to do with anything? There's a really beautiful quote that I love: liberation for one is liberation for all, right? And so when we think about the impact of racism systemically, institutionally in the child welfare system, when we link it back to chattel slavery, when we link it back to just all of the oppressive eras in the United States history and American history, it's not good. And there are clear connections between our institution even and how we treat Black and Brown people who happen to be disproportionately represented in the child welfare system as well. So can you share with our audience your perspective and your opinions and your lived experiences on the impact of racism in the child welfare system? And what can we, if anything, do to begin to address it, unpack it, reverse it, restoratively just it, if you will?
Yeah, that's another great big question, which I love. I would say personally, especially after that 12 years of advocacy and constantly seeking out, not just in formal institutions like college, but in general, I've always sought out workshops, trainings, and gone to many states for conferences on different topics that have expanded my knowledge of like child and family trauma in general. I would say I am absolutely at this point all for abolition. I know that it's not that is a big thing for some people to hear. Like, what do you mean? Just get rid of it. Then what? They always want you to have like a 64-page PDF on what comes next. But I just look back at history before paternalism, before the idea of one whole community or demographic saying, this is what parenting looks like. This is what a neighborhood looks like. This is what a house looks like. This is what real food is, et cetera, et cetera. This is how you're supposed to dress. This is what you're supposed to believe and who you praise. Before all of that, a lot of those communities affected by that demographic were doing just fine. And even if there were flaws in the way that they were doing it, they were still thriving. Like there was culture, there was strength, there was belonging, there was self-identity, and so much more. There was beauty, agency. And so I just feel like humans knew how to do it once. That knowledge is absolutely not lost. It's in young people today. They are blowing me away with how wise they are and how naturally they just block out the programming, or how quickly they can unlearn it if they have been socialized or programmed in some negative or harmful way. It's in young people, it's in elders. I feel like listening to the voices of older foster, like system involved people is huge.
If you've ever heard the story of anyone who has experienced or has a grandma or a parent who had the experience of being in a boarding school, my adoptive dad is Black and Native, and his mom experienced that firsthand. His grandma experienced that firsthand, and those stories are powerful. There's so many lessons in them. So just starting by listening to older youth is like huge, I think. Starting by listening to young people, addressing ageism is a part of that for sure, too, and acknowledging the nuances of like generational differences. But yeah, I am a huge abolitionist. I think that the systems, and I've said this in our last panel, are working exactly as they were designed, which is not a good thing because they're not doing well. Nobody, I heard someone say one time, the day a family in crisis seeks out foster care, seeks out a system that they trust that my kid's going to be okay. I'm going to be able to take the time I need to rebuild my home, whatever it may be, whether they need to separate or they're going to come in and get that support while the kiddo is safe, if that's the safe and healthy option and child-centered option, then that will be the day foster care is something to commend.
Christina Abraham joined us in episode 9, Aging Out of Foster Care in New York City, where she shared her experiences transitioning from foster care into adulthood. Her resilience and determination to find stable housing and build a secure future resounded deeply, especially as she highlighted the need for systemic support for young adults aging out of care. The other part of that is you understand what it's like to have nothing. I remember a lot of transitions where I had not a toothbrush, not a sock, not a teddy bear.
A penny, nothing.
Nothing. I'm getting used to decorating. This is my living room kitchen wall. It's a blank. Because I'm still learning, I can decorate my places. I can get comfortable and put things up to make this feel like home. Because how many times in foster care were we in someone else's home space and it wasn't ours to decorate and there was no reason to decorate and we didn't even have our own designated area to call our own.
That resonates really firmly with me because I never had a mirror, right? So the only time I would see myself would be brushing my teeth in the morning or when you're in the bathroom doing whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how that impacted me until I realized, I never really took pictures. If I closed my eyes and I went to visualize my face, I really couldn't even do it because I never really even looked at myself because I never even had a mirror. So when I first got into my apartment, I bought myself a big, wide, full-length mirror because I never had it. And, do I look at myself in the mirror as much as I guess I could? No. But do I have it? Yes. So just sometimes even those little things of not having a mirror. And as I would get older, especially in college, I would just be like, damn, I can't even visualize what my own face looks like. I don't even really take pictures of myself. I don't even look at myself. It's just my connection with me had been stunted by something as simple as not even having a mirror. And so that really goes to kind of what you were saying earlier. As you leave, you don't really understand all the ways that you've been impacted until you do. And then it goes back to something as little as having a mirror. Imagine everything else. Everything else I didn't get and how that shows itself up in ways that I haven't even unpacked yet. I'm 1.5 years out. I'm about to be 2 come August.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-August, I will be 2 years out of foster care, and I'm still seeing things.
And why does it sound like you're talking about getting out of jail?
It is. We were a ward of the state.
It feels like a bid, doesn't it? That's what they say. I've never been to jail, but it feels like we got out of something. We were released from prison in some regard, and it should never ever freaking feel that way. And it's just so sad. But you said something I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. I don't even recognize me. You said you didn't get the chance to even recognize yourself. And there's so many tiny little things that being in foster care, being in child welfare, whatever system you were engaged with, just strips from you. And the general public, And I would even go on to argue that most people in child welfare, in terms of professionals, it completely doesn't register for them, but that is not a normal part of being in the child welfare experience. And it could be little things like celebrating, not just like your birthday, right? But celebrating the little wins, like getting an A on your report card and no one cares. Or getting an audition or, successfully trying out for a school team. And it's like another day, like no one cares at all. Or even let's just take it back, even like when we're younger, right? Learning how to swing by yourself and no one's there to see it. No one's there to celebrate it. Learning how to tie your own shoe and no one gives a darn. No one gives a darn. Or it's like being so adultified that you can't even remember when you
Yep.
your own shoe.
Literally. And when that comes to me, is the first thing that I thought about is like death by 1,000 cuts, right? I feel like especially mentally, the small things turn into big things the longer they're able to fester, right? And with me, even feeling pride in myself or anything that I've done, because when you said you can get an A and nobody cares, positive reinforcement is a thing. We know it, it's scientifically proven, right? So now we're not even disputing that. When you don't have that positive reinforcement, then it just becomes to be like, what do I get for doing it? It's like, I'm darned if I do, darned if I don't. Nobody cares. And I remember the first time that the concept of self-pride even came to me is when I was 18, running my own nonprofit. And we had taken some of our youth in our cohort to John Jay College to see, like, sometimes senators and stuff, they come and you have like the town halls and you can hear, and it was about the Close Records campaign. And we were teaching them how they can be civically involved and everything like that. And somebody who was about 3 years older than me at the time, after the event, we had sat on the bench outside and she was just like, everything that you've done here has just really positively impacted me. And I'm so grateful to you. Do you feel proud of yourself? And that was the first time that self-pride even crossed my mind. And even as I say it, it's like you were running your own nonprofit, doing things for people.
Like, hello, I was like, I don't even know that. Like, what the heck?
You were
like the fact that you just casually dropped that, Christina, even when I had my own nonprofit when I was a teenager. Girl, what?
Yeah, and it was just like, she was like, do you feel pride in yourself? And it hit me like a bag of bricks, like pride in myself.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'll have to get back with you for that one. I guess, maybe, yeah. But not having that positive reinforcement or that good job when you do something. And it also leads to, like, I guess a coping mechanism of mine was just move forward. No matter what happens, you just move forward.
And finally, in episode 10, we wrapped up the season with a conversation with Jose A. Perez, a true testament to resilience and artistry, and from foster care to freedom. Jose's journey from foster care to becoming an acclaimed poet and advocate shows the transformative power of art and family.
She was also a prisoner on Rikers Island. We both were prisoners on Rikers Island. And it was just like a mother and son. Like, I don't even know if that's ever happened to anyone, if someone was ever locked up with their mother. I'm pretty sure it's happened before, but no one has ever really talked about how, like a mother and son rekindling their relationship in a prison, let alone the worst fucking prison there is. And this is a time where it's not facilitated by the child welfare system, not facilitated by any community partnership, not facilitated by any familial or family or any communal organization. Like, this was completely facilitated by my mother's desire to be a mom. That's it. That's all it was. It was nothing else. And everyone in the child welfare system, the federal system, anywhere, they would tell me that my mother was unfit still to this day. They would tell me that my mother wasn't worthy, that my mother wasn't the person to take care of me. And that's not true. They're lying. They're fucking lying. And for me, that's what I want to get out with my article. The article that I submitted is actually a portion of an introduction of my book of poems that's coming out soon.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Maybe we can have you back to read some of your poetry. I really look for those out listening. If you would like to give us donations so that we can fund more artistic endeavors like poetry, photography, videography, please, please, please feel free to reach out to us and coordinate that. You mentioned so many things, but I want to pause and just say thank you so much again for sharing your story, because I don't take it for granted ever. And I really do appreciate you being willing to share that so openly. I know it's going to not only be helpful and healing to yourself, but to others who are living it, and also will cause positive change in the child welfare system overall. You touched on a few things that I want to highlight for the audience. The first is the cyclical nature of the child welfare system. And we mentioned earlier abolishing child welfare system because it's just not working, right? It's not working for those who need it, but what it's actually doing is exactly what it was designed to do, which is to be oppressive to marginalized people. And we can see that because we've seen the multiple systems engagement across generations. We've seen the cyclical engagement within family structures and systems. And it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And it was designed by people who are oppressive. And so it's oppressing. It's oppressing, and it's not just oppressing one generation, it's oppressing multiple generations. Another thing that I want to highlight for our audience is the impact of the child welfare system on our bodies as children and as adolescents and as young adults. And even now, I'm still dealing with the stress and the trauma of child welfare. But you mentioned going through puberty while being in the child welfare system. And I went through puberty while I was in the child welfare system too. One thing that people don't often talk about too much is the stress hormones that are released when you are in the child welfare system. And I know that it probably affected you too, especially not even just being in puberty and not feeling safe enough to even shower, but just the general experience of not being within your family structure and not having a safe space to confide in and not really being at peace where you live, right? That's not cool. But for me, I knew I was supposed to be 4 inches taller than I am. And that's because I had so many stress hormones that were released when I was like, kind of like pre-puberty, that it stunted my growth.
Yeah.
So I'm 5'8" now, so I was supposed to be, I guess, 6'1". Thank God. I mean, because that would have been a whole different journey to walk through, like being a 6'1" woman. Maybe I could have been in the WNBA. We don't know, right? But the moral of the story is that there are real physical consequences and immediate consequences to our physical bodies as children, as babies, as adolescents, as teenagers, as young adults who have that lived experience. So I don't want to negate that.
Absolutely.
The last thing I want to highlight is I want to give our mothers some flowers.
That's
because
right.
child welfare really will make you have bad feelings about your parents. It will really make you feel like they don't care. They didn't try hard enough. They're not showing up for me in the way that I want them to. I don't actually remember much positive programming that I received from the child welfare around my mother and her ability to mom per se. But the thing that I want to uplift and give them their flowers for is when we need them the most, in our darkest times, they did show up. And it wasn't facilitated through child welfare. It wasn't facilitated through our families. It wasn't facilitated through friends. It was them with that inner knowing, hey, my child needs me right now. And they were able to show up in whatever capacity for whatever amount of time and give us exactly what we needed, how we needed it. It's been an incredible season. Through the stories and expertise shared in each episode, InnerViews has become a space for healing, empowerment, and community. I'm so grateful to each of our guests and to all of you, our listeners, for tuning in each month and supporting this journey. As we look ahead to 2025, I'm thrilled to announce that the upcoming season will be even bigger with new voices, fresh perspectives, and even more compelling conversations. Thank you for being part of the InnerViews family, and I can't wait to bring you more stories, healing, and transformation next year. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This has been InnerViews, where every story matters. The InnerViews podcast is a production of the Safe Camp Audio Network, which is a division of Youth Voices Rising via Fostering Media Connections. Please visit safecampaudio.org on the web or Safe Camp Audio on all major social media. This podcast was produced and mixed by Christine Onjoko. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you consider sharing, subscribing, and/or giving us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcast.